Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wombs with a View, Musings with Jenny and Sylvia. I am Sylvia,
I'm Jenny.
and we have an amazing guest for you this morning. We call her the Grandmother of Doulas, Rivka. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I just did some quick calculations in my head. If I was actually the grandmother of doulas, I'd be super old. So
And you're
thank you.
not.
That's
And you're
that's such
not.
a that no, I find we underestimate old women just like we underestimate birthing women in our society. So thank you for adding all those years onto my
Well, I
status.
think it's your wisdom, right? Not age, but wisdom. It's
Wisdom and
wisdom and
experience in
and
the
experience, yes, and the teaching, right? You are one of the main teachers here in Montreal for doulas, and for you've been serving women in birth for many years, more years than Jenny and I together, I believe. So, but it is a title we use that we pour upon you with honor for
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you.
We had a great conversation last week with Camille Maheu from ACAN, which is the Association of Doulas here in Quebec. And it brought up some questions, Jenny, right? And who best to answer or to engage with us than Rivka? And maybe you want to go there,
I
how
used
this all came about.
toward the end of the conversation, I was going to say fight. It definitely wasn't a fight, but toward the end of the conversation, I remember having this download of, okay, this is the difference between liberal feminism and radical feminism. And when I said that, the difference between working within the system and wanting to change the system. And when I said the word radical, Rivka came in my mind. So that was kind of the reach out point of, hey, Rivka. And how did Rivka and I meet? Wow. I thought it was the doula thing because she was my doula. I searched out what doula in town could I find that had the most
Who could
experience?
handle Jenny?
Who could be there in my
Oh,
in my birth room? And she
that was
remembers
such a
every
wonderful
moment.
experience. That was wonderful.
But then I backpedaled a moment ago, just before you hopped on, Rivka, and I think that our actual introduction was when I was a journalist before I was a mom, and I was doing a story on birth, and I was doing a story on births that were not taking place within the system, and that is, this is Rivka's book, The Birth Conspiracy, which we took the title of her book for our show today with permission. So I wonder if that is just like a good place to hop in. Like, what does the title of your book even mean? What is the conspiracy, and what does it have to do with birthing in the hospital?
So the conspiracy is okay. So basically, in the book, one of the things that I love is words. I'm a writer, um, not a particularly great one, but a writer nevertheless. And so, what I love to do is I love to go to the meanings of words. That is the the roots of words. And so, the root of radical, by the way, is root, and the root of a conspiracy is to whisper together. So there's this big whispering conspiracy all around the world and forever that women are not capable of giving birth surrounded by a circle of other women. This is not this is not true. It's just a conspiracy. I don't think that, like, so the title doesn't mean, oh, there's this big conspiracy and the doctors are out to get us. Not at all. Doctors go into their professions just as we do. They want to heal. But the conspiracy is that a healthy, well-nourished, young birthing mom, and by young I mean of reproductive age. I don't mean like she has to be under 30. The conspiracy is that those women cannot give birth surrounded by women that love them, skilled midwives, and a circle of loving care in their own homes. That's the conspiracy.
Do you see that more here in North America, or is this worldwide? Is this going worldwide now?
I'm really lucky because I've been able to attend the births of many women all around the world,
Yeah.
and this is a worldwide conspiracy.
Okay.
The most terrible, touching experience that I had of that was when I was accompanying a mum from Syria. She was in a refugee camp in Greece, and she ended up in the hospital on her own, giving birth without anyone there at all. It's the same conspiracy that no, You cannot take advantage of your inborn knowledge to give birth. You must come to us and leave your support system behind.
But this was not always the case, this conspiracy. Women did at one point give birth surrounded by other women, right?
Well, they did, and that leads to the conspiracy as well. It feeds into it because back in the day when we did give birth surrounded by a midwife and her assistant and our cousins and aunties and sisters, the maternal and infant morbidity and mortality rate was through the roof because we weren't well nourished. We didn't live in an affluent society like we do now. So people, it's easy to say, oh, well, look, those women were all dying of blah, blah, blah. And so, like, they had midwives. So obviously it was the midwife care that was causing the deaths, which, as we know, that isn't true either. But that's kind of the thing that's put together in people's minds.
The question we were talking about last week about here in Montreal, as many of you know, the birthing centers at one point had said with the COVID-19, and the numbers going really high, that no home births were going to be allowed. And then in the hospital side of things, they were saying no partners allowed. So just being, and we don't like that word allowed, but here we were having these rules pressed upon us.
Yeah.
And the women in both areas, in the hospital settings and in the birthing centers, a collective voice rose up and was able to overturn those two, rulings at the time, so that home births were allowed back in because the women were saying we're going to do it by ourselves without any help then. I don't know, is that what we need? Is this collective voice? Where can this change come about where we are now?
It's wonderful that there's a huge collective voice. But I think that one of the things that this health crisis has done has been it's allowed many of us to look at the cracks in the system, either in our own lives. Like I only got back into the birth world because I was given, a month to sit in my little basement meditation room and wonder what I wanted to do with my life. Well, because my cafe was closed and I was living with 5 males and I needed to get away a little bit. So I was sitting in that room and feeling the oxytocin from the births that I used to attend and realize, yes, I still have a voice. I still need to get back out there. And I think the world as a whole, the maternity care system as a whole, is seeing those cracks. So what do those cracks entail? One thing is that women everywhere are realizing that hospitals are places for sick people. That is what they are. They're a place where you go when you're sick. And I am the first person to tell someone with any kind of high-risk pregnancy to go and get a doctor and go to the hospital. Yeah. Healthy women do not need to be in the hospital. Pregnancy is not a sickness. So I think that's one little light that has gone on. Another little light that's gone on is, yes, the collective uprising of women is amazing. It's wonderful that we should have home births, that we should have whoever we want to come with us in the hospital. That's a fight that's been going on for a while, since the 70s, when no one was allowed in the hospital with the birthing mom. But one other thing that's happened is that I'm getting more and more calls from people who are wanting to give birth unassisted, and also from doulas who are taking on the mantle of lay midwife. And I don't agree with either of that. To be honest, I'm going to support someone to the ends of the earth. If she wants to have an unassisted birth, I will, because it's her responsibility and it's her, if she knows all of the risks, and there are indeed risks, then I'll support her. Sorry, my phone's dying. I'm just going to plug it in. There are indeed risks, but it's terrible for the situation to be such that people are actually going to go to a place that isn't a good place. It's not where we should be.
Yeah, I find this in the doula world, the burnout that doulas are experiencing as well, the high turnover in doula work, and what we see going on, and there, it can be sad. And I know, Jenny, that's part of your frustration as a doula. You're like, last week you were saying, I can't go back, I can't be a doula in the hospitals seeing what I am seeing at this moment in time.
I'm not nearly zen enough for that. It just boils my blood to see the same shit again and again and again. And I'm so, I hold my doula friends who are practicing and going in the hospitals when they're allowed to go in the hospitals to such high esteem that you can go and um, not be that person fighting in a doctor's face, because that's kind of my reaction, or fighting with the nurses. It's not going to serve it. It's not going to serve anybody. So I don't always understand how those of you who do support women in just seeing that same circle of, we know exactly how this is going to go down and we know exactly what they're going to insist on. That makes me think of a question, Rivka, you did kind of touch on it a moment ago. You really touched on it with why. So why should a healthy woman not give birth in the hospital? Or why might a healthy young, but low risk pregnant person, why might she be better off considering birthing elsewhere than the hospital?
And Rivka, you're on mute. I don't think we'll be able to hear you if you can unmute. I'm unable to mute you.
I feel like we're on a car adventure with those guys. This is good. I feel stuck in my house today. You're on mute. Yeah. I don't know how to unmute you.
I'm trying to, but I don't have access.
It's not Zoom. It is the StreamYard. Yeah. And now she's frozen. I wonder if she's left the Wi-Fi. Not that it was a rhetorical question. I did want to get from Rivka, if she's coming back in here, because we don't all know. And I was pregnant at 26. It was not exactly the most planned thing in my life, and I scrambled to find a doctor, somebody who had kind of newly arrived to Montreal, and the person I knew had parents who were surgeons, and she said, "Oh, my parents have friends," so she hooked me up with an ob-gyn who was actually
Here I am.
Hello, okay. Welcome back. I was just saying, I didn't know the first time I was pregnant that I had a choice of my care provider to some extent, and I did end up just latching on to that first ob-gyn that somebody referred me to, which in retrospect was a big mistake. I was 26-year-old. There would have been zero risk. I didn't know about the possibility.
But I didn't know either. I didn't know about my options, and that's
even to know for a GP. Yeah. So I guess just wondering for people who are pregnant or thinking of getting pregnant, knowing that they could choose, for example, between ob-gyn, which is a surgeon, which sees the worst of the worst kind of déroulement of how something can go, or a GP, general practitioner, which tend to be a little bit more, more chill and more natural when it comes to childbirth and pregnancy, or a midwife. Oh, she's gone.
She'll come
back.
Come back. She'll come back. If you have questions for Rivka, put them in the comments, and when she gets back, I'll put them on the screen, because we can put them on the screen. She's here. She's coming on again. I didn't know either, Jenny. I didn't know my choices, and I wish I had. And I had 3 babies. Here, I'll just add Rivka back to the screen.
That's if you can hear me now, Rivka, I was just kind of rambling a little bit about how we don't always know. We don't know unless we know why the hospital is not necessarily the best place. I have a personal thought that if you feel the most comfortable in a hospital and you're terrified to give birth at home, then you should probably give birth in the hospital. But for people who just don't know, can we even talk about what the risks are of giving birth in the hospital? That would be my question. What are the risks of giving birth in a hospital if you're a healthy, not low risk pregnancy?
So this is the thing: the hospital, the maternity care system that we're working in, and I worked for years as a doula, and you two have as well. And so the maternity care system that we're working in is a broken system, and the broken system means that people can go in there completely healthy and come out unhealthy. And I don't even want to get into the stories about when that happened. I think the worst one that I had was a woman that went in there without MRSA and came out with MRSA. MRSA is a drug-resistant staph infection. That's like the kind of rare weird thing. But we all know women who have gone in healthy, happy, and the clock has been ticking, and you didn't get to 6 centimeters long enough, so you're going to have a C-section. This is not appropriate for someone to have general surgery if it's not absolutely necessary. So we all know how a hospital can be risky, and not that many of us know how a home birth or an unassisted birth can be risky. But what I fight for is I fight for the right of women to have the choice of where they're going to give birth safely. If you want to have a home birth, you shouldn't have to fight to the ends of the earth and be I have 2 people right now contacting me. One is pregnant with twins. One is had a C-section for her first birth. And they're both desperate. Like, they're calling people in the US, they're calling people everywhere to try and just have the possibility of giving birth at home. So
just for the people listening, I think, sorry, Rivka, I was just going to say, for people who don't know, when you want to birth at home or with a midwife, the lists are so long. And I think in talking to one of them, she said they could serve 25% of the births here in Quebec, but they only serve 1 to 2% because they don't have the infrastructures, right? The government has not put those in place. Hence the calls that you're getting, right? They can't get
Well,
in.
I want to say one thing. I want to make one thing really, really clear to the women that are listening in Montreal. There is room in the birthing centers. A lot of people call me and they're like, "Oh, I need a unregistered home birth midwife," and I'm like, "No, you don't. How many birthing centers lists are you on?" "Oh, I didn't call them because I heard the list was too long." No. Call the 3 birthing centers. Get your name on the list. If your name's on the list, then you're probably going to get in, because unfortunately, and this is where the clincher is, many women get bumped off of the list. They get bumped high risk because the restrictions of giving birth with a birthing center midwife are very, very strict. And the government has those midwives, the order of midwives, directly under their thumb. Like, no, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. And of course, if I were working as a registered midwife, I'm not going to risk my license by disobeying the rules. I might bend them a teensy bit, but I'm not going to disobey them. So that's the thing. Get on those lists, ladies. If you want to give birth in a birthing center or at home with a registered midwife, just get out there, get on the phone.
Keep calling.
If you get a snarky receptionist, don't worry about it. Just go down there to the birthing center and get yourself put on the list. But what comes to mind, so the calls that I'm getting are more the calls of people that can't get into the birthing center for whatever reason. Geographically, they don't have a center there, or because of a risk situation, so-called risk situation. And so I was actually thinking about it this morning, and I was thinking, there's this concept called harm reduction. We mostly think about it in terms of addiction. So in addiction, basically you will provide safer ways that addicts can procure and to get the whatever substance they need. You're going to provide a safe way for that. In abortion as well. The reason why we legalized abortion was because women were getting illegal abortions and they were dying. In all the spheres of our kind of liberal society, what we want to do is we want to take note that people are doing dangerous things. We want to somehow figure out how we can, bring them into the fold by giving them a reasonable legal alternative. And there's a huge number of women who are not given that, and like it's important to for one thing, yes, let the doulas in the hospitals by all means, because what you're doing if you're not letting the doulas in the hospitals at this point is you're pushing just a small segment of women, but it is a segment of women. You're pushing them out into the place where they're going to be giving birth unassisted. And I'm all for free birth, but every single one of the women that I interviewed for my show that I'm going to be doing on traumatic birth, I interviewed 11 women that that had done unassisted births, and only one of them said that she would do it again without anyone there. And she actually did have
Wow.
someone there. She had
Okay.
a virtual midwife.
Oh,
Everyone
that's so
said, I would have
interesting.
loved to have someone there.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's not the
Yeah.
time to be alone
So
unless
I
you're a
think
cat.
I think
Cats do well.
cats do well, yeah, but like many animals do within a social kind of environment.
I loved having you there at my birth. I was so well. There was this big story at my home birth. We hid it for a long time because we knew what the people around us felt about home birth, that it was dangerous. And but this time I was not going back to the hospital. And we rented a birth pool, and we had the birth pool hidden in my spare room for months. We would just keep the door closed anytime any parents came to visit. But then I was so stupid. I had this blog, and I was blogging about my home birth, and they saw the blog that was all over Facebook. So we were found out. But then birth time came, and somebody filled that tub up with freezing cold water. So the birth didn't happen in the pool, and it was a very earthy birth. It was not a water birth. It was meant. Hey, do you remember, Rivka? It was a very raw, very earthy birth. But I just remember feeling so
It was very low. It was low down.
low root chakra kind of for sure. But the memories I have, the word is better in French. It's bien entouré. I
Yeah.
was bien entouré. There were 5 women in my house, and my little girl was there, watching a movie, and it was like it was a dream birth. And even though it didn't happen in the water with the candles and the breastfeeding toddler, it was like it was a dream birth, and it's because it was in my chosen place with my chosen people. And like you're saying, Rivka, like we don't deserve anything less than that, to be where you want with who you want when you birth your baby.
I birthed in a hospital the 3 times here in Quebec, and I had very, very positive experiences. But I was well surrounded too, Jenny. I did have my doulas, and I had my spouse, and but had I been pregnant a 4th time, my goal, not my goal, my wish would have been to have my mom and my sisters-in-law and all my
Mm-hmm.
friends around me and have this big celebration. But I wasn't there in
Yeah.
my first, second, and my third went so fast that, thank heavens, everything went well. That's what made me want to be a doula, and I switched careers completely. But then the reality hits when you actually start going to hundreds of births. You see exactly they're not like my births. The people are not experiencing that euphoria that I was experiencing all the time. Some women do, of course. And I think the roles we play as a bridge between both worlds is super important. And my question is, where do we go from here? Like, how do we change this system that we are kind of, I feel, stuck with? I don't know if Rivka has the answers. I don't know if we'll have the answers
Well,
to this.
I don't think we're stuck with. I don't think we're stuck with the system.
Good.
I don't think it's a. I don't think. I truly believe that if you put out abundance into the world, and you put out change in the world, and you put out bravery and courage and doing things differently in the world, then they will come back to you.
They'll
So
come back.
the
Yeah,
first thing is for us as a collective group of women is to say, no, we're not stuck with
exactly.
this system. Where do you want to give birth? You want to give birth in the hospital? I'm going to come with you, and I'll support the hell out of it. I am going to
Mm,
take such great care of your bubble that you will have a good experience come what may. I will tell
yeah,
you that you can change nurses if that nurse is being mean to you. I will
right.
tell you that you need to reach deep into yourself and make your own decisions. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to give birth at home? I will try my very best to make a place for you to give birth at home. So it's not that we're stuck with the system. I think we're stuck with ourselves. I think we're stuck in the conspiracy that we don't have power.
Yeah, I
And we
agree.
do
And I
have
agree.
power. We have so
Mm.
much power.
It's all the choice of words, and I use that word.
So
I feel that many women think that they're stuck, right? It's that feeling, well, I can't change the system. You're not allowed to do this. Oh, I'm not allowed to do this, Sylvia. I can't do this. And I'm like, You want to eat, just eat something. Don't, you can do this. If you want to walk around, let's walk around. And I love that imagery of helping the women achieve the birth that they wish to have. Where I'm feeling a little like
And
where
I think another
Go ahead, Rivka, go ahead.
misconception is, so basically there are a lot of misconceptions on the doctor's parts. I remember one time I was at a birth and the mom looked at me and said, what should I do, when it was a question of putting the erythromycin in the baby's eyes? And I said, well, you need to decide what you want to do, but actually the Canadian Association of Pediatricians just put out a paper saying that it wasn't necessary. And the doctor intervened and said, don't listen to her. She didn't even vaccinate her kids. Well, first of all, none of your business. Secondly, actually I did, because whatever,
Yeah.
not question right now. And thirdly, like, the woman has to have the right to make her decision. So those are preconceptions on the doctor's part, but we have preconceptions too. And one of those preconceptions is that if I say that it's that we shouldn't be waiting for doulas to be in the hospitals because hospitals are a place for sick people, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have doulas. I'm saying that that because hospitals are a place for sick people, we should start looking at that question and looking at that crack in the system and start wondering about, why have doulas been banned? What is this about here? This is about the power of women giving birth. It's nothing to do with COVID. It's nothing to do with doulas or hospitals. It's about how scared everyone is of the power of women giving birth in a sovereign way. So doulas belong in every birth. Like Jenny's birth, the midwives were taking care of her medically, and they were there for the life and safety of Jenny and her child. But I was her doula. I was just there to just be with her, and when she needed to squat down, I just squatted down. So that preconception that if we have midwives, we don't need doulas, that's another thing that has to be scrapped. We need a
For
huge circle
sure.
of supporting women. Midwives, doulas, sisters, aunties, everyone. And then the mom might want to just go into the bathroom and sit on the toilet and call us in when she's ready to give birth, and that's fine too. What I'm fighting for is a right of women to have the choice to give birth how they want, where they want, with whom they want, and make sure that birth is a safe one.
Yeah, and that's where Mika comes here with, how can doulas support the right for more safe birth choices in Montreal? And that's where I feel with the systems that we have in place, and Jenny and I have spoken about that, is that when we only have a few birthing centers in Montreal, but so many requests that are being denied because of wait lists, that is frustrating. That is frustrating because these women are being told, no, you have to come to the hospital. There's just no room for you here. And that's where we as a team at Rock the Cradle, we discuss this often. And it's, how do we support, more choices?
And the fact that,
Go.
sorry.
No, go ahead, Rivka. Not sure she hears us.
Yeah, there's a delay.
There's a little bit of a delay.
The fact that so there was a kind of a pretty active unregistered. Sorry.
You're cutting out a little bit, but not sure we'll. Well, there we go. This is a super interesting conversation, and we could talk about this for hours because we didn't really even delve into all the unassisted birth. Oh my gosh, what is that? How do we? My question to Rivka about how do we change the system? How can we get more birthing centers? And I know the midwives and everyone's working so hard, and there was a new one announced in the East End of Montreal, and I know the government is working hard on that, but I still feel that there are restrictions.
The system here is so different. I don't know about the entire country, but I do
No.
come from Ontario, and that was my point of reference when I got here. And the women who are in my virtual yoga classes now, who come from Ontario, it's just so different. They have. So we teach, Mika and I are teaching these hypnobirthing classes, and based in the States, and they talk a lot about choosing your care provider, and it doesn't apply in the same way in Montreal.
No, we don't have much choice, right?
Back then, when I was doing research, and maybe one of you know a better stat, although I imagine it's quite the same, even with the addition of a couple more birth centers, but it was 30% of the women who wanted a midwife in Montreal or in Quebec could get a midwife. 30% who wanted one. There's not that many people who even want one. So what does that mean? Not how many people are actually getting served per year in the way that they want to. I don't know if you guys have a better stat, but that was what it was a number of years ago.
Yeah, the midwife had told me, she goes, yeah, we would be able to serve 25% of births in Quebec, because and that's very similar.
And you think of the costs that represents. If you want to talk about the economy and talk about money, it's way cheaper to have a home birth. Don't need anything. They have the emergency stuff, if we need oxygen, something like this, but they don't need anything. They have some sheets on the bed, and you provide those yourself, and they get washed before you even know what happened.
One question I had for Rivka is, where is there a model that you like in terms of modern medicine, I guess, is where I'm going. Like, is there where low risk births are at home or in a birthing center, and only high risk are in hospital? Does that exist?
I don't think it exists anywhere right now. I think that there was a peak maybe 20 years ago, especially in some of the northern European countries, but that has really declined. And I think because we're living in a culture of fear right now. We're living in an incredibly affluent times where we're afraid of our own shadows.
Wow.
So like,
yeah,
we're afraid of everything. So, but in answer to that 30%, those statistics have always confused me, because many women that have called me wanting an unregistered midwife, I've said, like, go to the birthing, put your name on the list. So if you want a midwife and you don't put your name on the list, it's like wanting to win the lottery without buying a ticket.
Yes.
Yeah.
But most of the women, in my experience, that have wanted to have a registered midwife have gotten one, unless they've been risked out or they've not been in a geographical position.
That's such good news, especially if they're continuing to follow up, if they're willing to still change care providers at 30 weeks, which is sometimes when you get on the list, but you do need to keep following up.
Exactly, yeah. But I think that, unfortunately, the world over, like I was saying before I got screwed up by the technology, about 12 years ago, there was a pretty active unregistered midwife community in Montreal. And these were midwives that were well trained and certified in the US, who were working, providing home birth care in Montreal. And they were, they've been completely destroyed by legal proceedings against them. So that doesn't bode good news to me. And right at the same time when that was happening, it also happened in Saskatchewan to a midwife there, to a traditional birth attendant there. And it was also happening in Europe. In Hungary, a traditional birth attendant was actually put in jail. And so there's a movement against women giving birth autonomously and with their sovereign power. And I'm noticing this little thing: should births take place in hospitals? Yes. If you want to go to the hospital and give birth, you should absolutely go to the hospital and give birth. If you want to go to the hospital and give birth on your hands and knees, then you should absolutely give birth on your hands and knees. You want to squat? Figure out a way that you can squat. You want to make a lot of noise when you're having your contractions? Do it. It's not whether they should take place in hospitals. The question is, how can we fix our broken maternity care system so that if I'm a 24-year-old healthy mom, maybe single mom, and I want to give birth in a hospital with my doula and my sister and my cousin, I should be able to do that. And I should be able to give birth in whatever position I want. The doctors should be trained, Oh, I can't catch a baby. The lady's upside down. Are you kidding me? The lady's upside down? I have
very limited. They're very limited. Yeah. We've heard that one, Jenny. We've heard that one. It's true.
I have a book called Traditional Midwifery in Botswana, and there's a lovely story in that of a birth, and it's going a little bit too long. The traditional birth attendants don't like how long it's going. So they arrange this little, like a little nest in the middle of the hut, and they put the lady's head on the nest, and then they get her up into a headstand, and then they put her back down. She's in the headstand for a couple of contractions, then they put her back down, and she gives birth. What were they doing? They were just allowing that baby to get out of a little bit of maybe a not optimum position, and put their head properly into the pelvis, and then they gave birth. So even upside down, we can give birth. Like, we should be able to do all of the things in the hospital, out of the hospital, wherever, but we should have the right to safe care wherever we are. That's the thing, not whether the hospital or not, but safe care, safe and sacred care.
And how we wish to do it, I love this. I know time is ticking, Rivka, and we said we wouldn't take up your whole day, and I think we could spend the whole day chatting with you. Rivka you've got a couple of projects. You mentioned you're coming out with a series on traumatic birth, but you also have a podcast that you just launched.
Yeah, it's called Baby Magic.
Baby Magic. Very exciting. And
so the show on traumatic birth it's like a baby. It's gestating for a long time. It's going to be an actual documentary, reasonably full length, 40 minutes, and so it's really working. But it's going to be a while before it's birthing. So that's what that is. And also, I've started teaching again. I am teaching doulas. I'm teaching birth keepers. I'm doing virtual classes for pregnant moms. I'm back on track. That little lockdown there, that really helped me. That little time in my meditation room, that was good.
That's good. There we see the
positive.
Wow,
needed to happen. Things. It all happened so that Rivka could return back to us.
Well, your
oh my
voice
God! Don't
is
put
that. But are you putting the pandemic on Rivka now, Jenny?
Well, in a good way, and it's a positive spin.
Yikes!
Yeah,
I guess so.
You can also catch Rivka at her family's cafe, Café de la Pace. Lovely, I think they're vegan meals. Am I right?
Vegan, vegetarian, yeah.
Vegan, vegetarian, and it's yummy. I've been there many times. Jenny has even worked there and donned an apron. She dons an apron once in a while. Thank you so much, Rivka. This was a lovely chat with you. And what I want everyone to leave with is that there is hope, there is possibility, and it's to request what you want and know what you want, and yes, keep going.
I would say, I'm sorry.
Women. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to correct you, Sylvia, but I would say don't request.
No.
Demand.
Demand.
Yes.
Thank you. My choice of words today. Thank you.
You can demand politely, but still demand.
Demand. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, you said the word power a moment ago. I like the words power. I like the words radical. And I like the word demand.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Jenny, any last words?
No, thank you, Rivka. It's always so nice to talk to you and have you around.
Thank you.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. Enjoy wherever this car is taking you. I don't know.
Well, actually, I had the sudden urge to go back to the Rocky Mountains where I basically spent my childhood. So I'm in the Rocky Mountains.
What?
Yeah.
You're in the Rockies?
Yep.
You're in Western Canada.
Yep.
Is she talking about the same Rockies? Oh my